Hey guys, this is Captain Penelope of the Super Paladin Bros, and welcome back to another episode of Star Trek DS9 Harbinger. In the last episode, well, Ambassador Kerrig was murdered, and Bannik was promoted, but Bannik has taken the role of security officer as well, so he's also investigating Kerrig's murder. So, in this episode, we're going to open negotiations, but we're going to talk to the Investigator again. See what's going on with her.
Shima karma bunarek pursha ka hibanut dide nakava nipano dabana elda sharet.
Rasmus?
Balo bolekpa hozro shima kama shinarek hozro ka shim haban rishe kama bilmana sharet.
Are you all right?
Voices.
I'm sorry?
They are here with us now.
Who's here? Who are you talking about?
All around us, as if they had never left.
I don't understand.
Never shriven, never prayed over.
Rasmus, it's Bannik. Can I help you?
Bannik. Yes, I remember. It is the rising Bannik. The spirits of Terek Nor surround us. I must pray for them, all of them, before the dark cloud passes.
Who needs your prayers?
The Borjas, the dead who cannot find peace. They must be sanctified before the cloud disperses.
Borjas? You're saying you've seen ghosts on the station?
I've heard them. Spirit voices arguing in empty corridors. Footsteps from the past. Doors opening and closing just as the prophecy foretold.
The Bajoran religion is based on the texts of the prophets, isn't it? Did the prophets foretell this plasma storm?
The storm is only part of the prophecy. It is the cloud about the temple gates that heralds the coming of the Harbinger.
What exactly is the Harbinger?
A warning. The prophets tell of the Harbinger coming to cleanse the heavens. The signs are clear. The Borjas are rising. A dark cloud lies at the temple gates.
The temple gates? You mean the mouth of the wormhole?
Yes.
This rising, it's happening now?
Yes, the veil between the dead and the living is tearing. The unconsecrated spirits call to us as they walk unseen through the same corridors they did in life.
Just exactly how will this Harbinger cleanse the heavens?
Each of us must find our own interpretation of the prophecies, Bannik. The prophets can only show us the path to truth. We must walk there ourselves.
What makes you think this is going on?
It is rising night, and I have seen the evidence of these spirits.
Why would a space station be haunted?
There were thousands of us here, slaves under the Cardassians. Beaten, starved. When one of us fell under the strain, a Cardassian overseer kicked the body aside and called for a replacement. There was no time for prayer.
The Cardassians never let you pray over your dead?
It was forbidden. We are a religious people, Bannik. When we depart this life, our spirits seek solace. The solace that only the Bajoran death chant can provide. I believe it is that ritual that guides our souls to the next phase. The Borjas of Terek Nor were denied these chants, and now, at the rising, they are doomed to walk the paths of the living.
But what if those incidents aren't supernatural? Exactly what did you see?
The Borjas have their secrets. I will keep theirs as they have kept mine.
But...
Forgive me, my prayers must continue.
Okay. That what she said probably doesn't give me any jitters, but
Yeah,
Uh, uh, that's what I mean. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Doors opening,
Computer.
closing by themselves.
Promenade, level 7, section 5.
Oh man. Yeah, do not dismiss that. You may think that's ridiculous, but don't. No. You would be a fool if you did. Okay. We're back to reality. This game can be a little creepy, but we're going to go to Odo's office before we actually open negotiations. Meet with Quark, it looks like.
You have no proof of these accusations. I demand to speak to Captain Sisko.
Oh, you will, Quark. And you can explain to him why we have a dead Federation diplomat on our hands.
Is this the man that killed the ambassador?
No!
I have my suspicions.
Envoy.
It's Ambassador now, Quark. A field promotion.
Ambassador. I had nothing to do with any killings. I've never met Ambassador Kerrig.
But you recognized me at the bar. How did you become so familiar with the Federation diplomatic staff?
I told you. I just try to keep up with the comings and goings around here. It's good for business.
Then why were you so nervous when I met you earlier? Every time I mentioned Ambassador Kerrig, you jumped.
Of course I'm nervous. Do you have any idea the amount of profit that this plasma storm is costing me? The promenade is deserted, I've got a back room full of rotting low-carb beans, and some obscure Bajoran labor law has me paying my Davo girl whether anyone spins a wheel or not. Not to mention the fact that this bucket of bolts we're in could collapse at any second under the disturbance. Oh boy, you bet I'm nervous.
So you've met. How nice. What else did you notice, Ambassador?
He was talking to someone over the view screen when I came in. Someone who seemed very upset.
That? Oh, that was just a customer of mine. A disgruntled one.
How could you tell?
You told him the deal was off. He had some sort of finned crest on his head.
Sounds like one of the Lycotians. Quark, you haven't been associating with the Lycotians from the Altair group, have you? Really?
What's the Altair group?
A bunch of petty mercenaries disbanded by the authorities on Altair 7. 2 Lycotians from the group were trapped on the station when the last transport failed. Well, well, well. What bad company you've been keeping, Quark.
Look, I'm a free citizen of the Ferengi Alliance. I've had enough of your accusations. If you have any evidence against me, which you don't, arrest me. Otherwise, let me get back to my bar.
You're right. I don't have any evidence. Yet. If I did, you and your Lycotian cronies would already be behind security fields. But I will soon enough. The computer's analyzing the trace scans I took of the Ambassador's quarters.
Scans?
It should be finished shortly. Once the results are compiled, we'll be able to pinpoint exactly who entered Kerrig's room from their DNA pattern. Go back to your bar, and tell your Lycotian associates that it's only a matter of time before the computer finishes analyzing the genetic samples I took from Kerrig's room. If there's even a molecule of Lycotian DNA, I'll have the proof I need to put them away, and hang a charge of accessory to murder around your greedy neck.
Well, I'm sure this will all be settled. I'll be on my way then.
You do that. Ambassador, have a look at this for a moment, won't you? Well, I think he got the point. If I know Quark, he's on his way to warn the Lycotians about the molecular scan.
But then they'll know you're after them.
That's what I'm hoping. Unfortunately, Quark was right. Your Starfleet regulations require that I have hard evidence before making an arrest. There's no Starfleet sub-regulation on instinct, but if the Lycotians are involved in Kerrig's murder, they'll try to make their move before that evidence comes in.
And you'll be ready for them.
Exactly.
So, you think the Lycotians killed Kerrig?
Of the beings remaining aboard the station, they're the likeliest suspects. They've certainly got the histories. Petty theft, fraud, extortion, but no record of murder. Yet.
What about the Scythians? They clearly had the most connection to the Ambassador.
That's true. What was your impression of them?
I was on my way to meet with the Scythian delegation. I'll be able to give you more information after I've opened communications with them, if I can.
I'll be very interested to hear what you learned from them. I've had a guard posted at their airlock door since they docked. I doubt they could have entered the station unobserved, unless they have abilities we're unaware of.
Could one of the Scythians have transported himself into Kerrig's quarters?
They do have transporter technology, but the station sensors would alert us if anyone beamed on or off that vessel. Unless their technology's so different it doesn't register on our sensors.
What about the crew of the station? We can't rule them out as suspects.
If the killer is still aboard this station, and until I can prove otherwise, I have to assume he is. It could be any one of us, except you. The initial scans show that the body had been decomposing for at least an hour before you docked.
Can you account for the whereabouts of the station crew?
The remaining station crew were all at their posts or otherwise accounted for from the time the last transport left. Except for Ensign Ctell. Ah, a Folian. He was molting.
And what if it turns out that the murder occurred before the station lockdown?
Then the killer may have escaped during the evacuation, in which case he's loose on Bajor. I can't warn the Bajoran authorities until the plasma storm dissipates. For now, we've got to assume that he or she is still on the station.
What about the last transport, the one that didn't make it off the station in time?
That's where I think we'll find our answers. Let's take a look at the passenger list. There were only 5 passengers aboard, mostly people who put off leaving till the last opportunity. Lieutenant Mret was the pilot. He's monitoring shield grids. Hasn't been out of the lower core since the transport docked. Here are the passenger records. Johnny Tharon.
She's the Dabo girl, right?
She is now, although I don't think she came here with that career in mind. I had to pull her in once on assault, but she was out the next morning. The victim didn't want to press charges.
What happened?
Apparently she had a misunderstanding with the captain of a Ferengi research vessel. Friend of Quark's, I think. Something about her fare to the Gamma Quadrant. She nearly had one of his lobes off by the time I arrived.
Who's next?
Rasmus Selin.
Yes, the Bajoran Vedic. We met on the upper promenade earlier.
She doesn't have any kind of security record, except for her official release documents from the Cardassian labor camps.
Yes, she told me she was imprisoned on the station during the Cardassian occupation.
I remember.
You were on the station during the occupation?
It amused the Cardassians to have a shapeshifter in their service. I was enlisted as an investigator of sorts.
What do you know about her?
She had a brother, younger, I believe. He was killed during a maintenance survey.
An accident?
Accident? No. Manufacturing decision. Corrosion on the main smelting unit would set production back 6%. To keep it at maximum efficiency, the Cardassians would send a Bajoran in to remove the molten slag residue. If the slave was burned alive in the process, a small loss.
I see.
I was there when they dragged his body out, what was left of it. The sister was... It was a frequent occurrence in those days.
Okay, what's the next one?
Quark.
Right. What's his background, anyway?
Fraud, embezzlement, trafficking, conspiracy, bribery, racketeering, extortion. How far back did you want to go?
No acts of violence? No murder?
No. There was that incident with the drunken Klingon, but I wouldn't call it murder.
What kind of criminal record do you have on him?
His file's so large I had to expand the record capacity. Disappointingly few convictions, though. He's as slippery as a Klabnian eel.
Why do you think he booked passage on the very last transport out?
He's a Ferengi, Ambassador. That bar of his is his primary, legal source of profit. He'd keep it open as long as there was one potential customer and a single strip of latinum left on the station. Besides, it probably took him hours to secure all his precious possessions.
Let's see the next one.
Kimry Renat, a Lycosian. He was a weapons expert for a second-rate criminal consortium on Altair. I've been keeping an eye on him and his partner Priyet Ning since they came on board.
That's the one I saw talking to Quark on the view screen in the bar.
That makes sense. Renat spent a small fortune in the bar, but Quark's never so much as made eye contact with him. That usually means he's disguising a covert business arrangement.
I haven't come in contact with this species before.
Lacosians divide themselves up into clans based on minor interspecies differences. Physical size, local dialects. A distinction as insignificant as skin color will set them at each other's throats.
Must be an immature culture.
These two are from southern Lycos. That blue coloring is a regional characteristic. The other clan was northern, similar but larger and with red skin. I broke up a confrontation between the two outside Quarks. After that, they studiously avoided one another. The Northerners booked passage on an earlier evacuation shuttle. That's all of them. Until we get the scans back, we can't rule any of them out. Just how well did you know the Ambassador, Mr. Bannik?
We had our differences.
Professional differences?
Mostly. Kerrig was a true Tyrian. He believed the galaxy's problems are better solved with words than deeds. For me, sometimes the words just aren't enough.
Like on Chimera's 10?
The Sancusans were about to slaughter those hostages. I barely got off my first volley in time. But a true Tyrian like Kerrig would have observed, filed a formal protest.
A formal protest wouldn't have prevented Kerrig from ending up as a pool of organic matter on an alien station. And I don't believe it'll prevent his killer from coming after you, if we don't find him first.
What'll the tricorder scans tell us?
The molecular scans record residual skin and exoskeleton cells. The computer should be able to tell us the species, even the identity, of every being that entered the Ambassador's quarters in the last 48 hours.
When will the computer be finished analyzing the scans of the Ambassador's quarters?
Not for an hour, at least. We're on emergency power, so the computer's slower than usual. Of course, it's in emergency situations that we really need the computer's speed.
Were you able to determine if anything had been stolen from the Ambassador's quarters?
Not positively, but security records show that when Kerrig boarded, he invoked diplomatic privilege.
What for exactly?
According to the officer's log, the Ambassador was very insistent that we not scan a particular piece of his luggage. I have visual reference on the container, a small silver case, but it wasn't among the contents of his quarters.
Was there something about this particular piece that made you want to scan it?
Not really. We routinely scan arriving traffic for weapons, incendiary devices, contraband. This station is on the outskirts of Federation space, Ambassador. You'd be amazed at what people try to bring in and out of here.
So you think the killer might have stolen it?
Very likely. Do you have any idea what it might have contained?
It could have been something classified. Something he couldn't even trust station security with.
Especially not once he'd discovered that the station's chief of security is a changeling.
I didn't mean...
But it's true nonetheless. Kerrig was returning from the Gamma Quadrant. If he had come across an item that could help the Federation fight the Dominion, the last thing he'd want to do is turn it over to a member of the same species as the Dominion's founders.
But if he had trusted you with it, he may never have been killed for it.
You may be right. If your theory's right, when we find whatever was in that case, we'll find the killer. Only problem is, how will we know when we've found it? What do you know about the Ambassador's mission in the Gamma Quadrant?
He and I were part of the same delegation. The Federation was hoping we'd be able to make contact with aliens in the Gamma Quadrant that aren't tied to the Dominion.
Be careful what you wish for. It might come true.
What?
It's an old Earth saying our Chief of Engineering taught me. Go on. What else can you tell me?
Not much. When our delegation arrived at DS9 last month, he met immediately with Captain Sisko. The rest of us reported to our assigned ships for departure. After that, I didn't hear from him until I got his coded rendezvous order.
What did it say, exactly?
It was very terse. Need your aid immediately at Station Deep Space 9 in Alpha Quadrant. I changed course right away. What about the way he was killed? That's got to tell us something about the murderer.
Yes, the murder weapon. Molecular inhibitors aren't your average sidearm. The only one I've ever seen belonged to a dead Caraxian who had an accident in our local tailor's shop.
The tailor. Kerrig, isn't it? Was he evacuated to Bajor too?
To Bajor? I'm sure he'd rather face a plasma storm than a planet full of Bajorans. Garrick's a Cardassian, Ambassador. Believe me, they're not welcome guests on their former annex. No, Garrick was picked up long before the last transport left, by a private Tholian yacht. I can hardly wait to hear his explanation for that.
Have there been any Caraxians on the station recently?
Not since the incident in Garrick's shop. They seem to be avoiding the station, or perhaps our tailor, ever since. But an inhibitor could be just as deadly in anyone's hands.
Now, to further explain this, there was an episode for the when involving Nabran Tain, which was former head of the Obsidian Order for Cardassia. Basically, Kerrig was Tain's protege and also his son. So that's where Kerrig comes into this equation a little bit.
So it's a Caraxian weapon?
Not necessarily. Molecular inhibitors are used on Bajor as an ore processing device. They were one of the Cardassians' more effective tools.
Can't you just run a station scan to find the weapon?
Not effectively. It's just a device like any other. Until it's discharged, it doesn't give off any distinct signature. Unfortunately, it only discharges on contact with a victim's body.
It's only dangerous if it touches you?
But don't underestimate the threat. A Klingon Dictag can be just as deadly as a phaser in the right hands.
Where could the Terragan radiation have come from?
It could be an effect of the plasma disturbance. Lieutenant Dax has been picking up stray traces of it since the storm set in.
Could this have something to do with the Harbinger?
The Harbinger?
It's apparently some sort of warning from the Bajoran prophets.
Warning? About what?
The Vedic Rasmus mentioned it earlier. She thinks the plasma storm is a sign that this Harbinger is coming.
I'm more interested in evidence than local legends, Ambassador. That's all for now. I'll keep you apprised if the situation changes.
Thank you, Constable.
And Bannik, keep your eyes open. I don't want 2 dead diplomats on my hands.
Easier said than done. But, alright, so that is all we're going to do for this episode. And we're going to go ahead and make our way to the Scythians, the docking ring. And there's a blue guys there. But, yes, we quickly recap. Basically, they're given the evidence presented, he suspects Lycotians. Now, that kind of coincides what Johnny Theron has mentioned before.
Computer? What's my current location?
You are currently located in the Habitat Ring, Level 11, Section 6.
So, Johnny Theron, who the Dabo girl, kind of confirmed what Odo has mentioned about the Blue Lycotians. So, we will see about this later. But for now, I'm kind of out of time. So, in the next episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine Harbinger, we will continue on with episode 5, where we will go ahead and open negotiations with the Scythians and continue our investigation on Kerrig's murder. So, I've been Captain Penelope of the Super Paladin Bros. And I will see you guys in the next video.